Hello, Sunny Ponani, 7:32 Central African Time. Welcome to Montreal, Canada. We have about half the grid available. It is the 12th installment of the Breakaway Racing League season. The top tier, of course, a lot at stake. Notwithstanding the battle for the championship between this man highlighted, that being Seachley, the three-time defending champion, and his would-be challenger on the other side of the exact same garage, Smirts Django. At the top of the championship standings, Django with 206 championship points. Seachley snapping at his heels, 177 points, is the other Mercedes driver, I beg your pardon. For Team McLaren is someone who claimed a race win last time out, repeating his feat from last year. Although last season, Caboza won in Hungary. This time, it was brilliance in Brazil, including a fantastic showing in the sprint race. Caboza, third in the driver's standings, becomes one of only three drivers in the triple digits. 119 championship points for Caboza. His teammate not too far behind. Mex is on 98 championship points and is fourth in the standings. Zotail, the veteran Tier 1 driver for Team Alpine, has racked up 60 championship points. Fensei, who's been doing very well in recent times, pushed Caboza to the limit. You would recall that Caboza opted to run a set of intermediate tires in dry conditions while the rest of the pack came into the pits. Caboza rolled the dice and it paid off in spectacular fashion. Caboza coming home to win that by the slimmest of margin. Fensei pushed him far and as far as he possibly could. Fensei 360, aka Ofensei Rabarifi. He is currently sixth in the championship, 55 points. Ingawako, aka D-Wax, is flying the flag for AlphaTauri. He has 54 points in seventh place. Teppo Temba for Aston Martin is in eighth. Don Radico, the newbie as far as the top tier is concerned, is at ninth in the standings from Tabo T92 and 10th. Donathan Laka is 11th. Loveness is 12th. Mello the Mello, who we haven't seen for quite some time, is in 13th place. Mello is treading on thin ice here. He needs to put a string of appearances together, because if he does miss a total of 8 races, that is him done and dusted as far as his prospects in the top tier are concerned. So Mello needs to come back to he needs to come back, needs to make his presence felt. We need to see Mello on the paddock. Otherwise, he will lose his place in the top tier after missing too many races this year. Now, towards the rest of the standings, Donathan Laka is 11th, Loveness is 12th, Mello the Mello is 13th, King Rapture is 14th in the driver's standings, and Tapiso 15th, Romeo, a.k.a. Mandla, is 16th, and Nebo is 17th. And the bottom three places, of course, don't you forget the bottom three places, that basically entails relegation from the top tier. That is none other than Esbuda in 18th, Josh, aka Damnesia, in 19th, and Ban Kobe at the bottom of the standings. Now, Josh and Ban Kobe have each racked up just 4 points this entire season. And, of course, only 16 races in this season's championship, so it is very, very, very tricky for those guys to make sure that they consolidate as many points as they possibly can between now and the end of the season, and make sure that we can see them towards the end here. Don Rabico is in the comment section as opposed to being in the paddock. It would have been great to see him doing his thing and giving all these drivers a lot to think about and causing a fair few headaches, courtesy of the pace that he naturally has. The Ferrari seat, I do wonder if Donathan Laka will be able to race and at least have some Ferrari representation on the track. Just under 16 minutes of this first of 3 qualifying sessions to go. If you're new to Formula One, the aim of qualifying is simple. You got to go around the circuit as fast as you possibly can. And, of course, the top drivers in each quali session go through to the next. Oh, Mandla sends it straight into the wall, coming out of the final chicane, trying to go for his first push lap. so he will have his heart in his mouth. Thankfully, the car is still intact. He can still keep on going, keep on pushing. Man, oh man, Mandla coming unstuck at the very beginning. Here comes the champion Seaclay's attempt to be the first to put in a representative time. What'll it be? The end of Sector 1 is a 20.222 second split. Seaclay running a set of medium compound tires, of course. So not exactly pushing as hard as he can. The soft tire is, of course, the quickest if you're new to Formula 1. But as I was saying, the aim of the game is to put in as fast a time as possible. And thereafter, if it was a full grid, so if we did have 20 drivers out here, 5 of them would be getting knocked out between Q1 and Q2. And a further 5 getting knocked out in Q2, leaving only the top 10 drivers to battle it out and see who will finish where at the start, or rather who will start where by the time this race gets started. Here comes Seaclay, final chicane. He navigates it without incident, will be the first to set his representative time. He opens up that rear wing on this DRS straight. 112.174 is the benchmark, courtesy of Seaclay. Now, Mandla still needs to probably come back into the pits, so we will watch and see which of the McLarens is on the verge. It looks like Caboza is has invalidated, so we're going to hop on instead to the likes of Inebo, who's on the verge of finishing his push lap. Soft tires for him, not messing around. His teammate is right behind him. Nebo 114.3, and Zotal sets a 13.299 as his initial banker effort. As Buddha had invalidated, so we would instead hop over to his teammate to see how he fares on his push lap attempt. Meanwhile, looks like this man, Moteo Mex, is out on track, currently navigating Sector 2, has been doing very well for himself since coming up to this top tier. This is his debut season in the top tier, and look at him, 98 points, comfortably in P3 in the driver's standings, but not very comfortable coming out of that particular corner in Sector 2. He kept it together, did not make acquaintance with the wall or the track limits. His lap ongoing is still valid. So here he comes now to begin the third and final sector. Long straight before that chicane, which of course is where Mandla came unstuck not so long ago. Here he comes across the chicane, no incident, and he flirts with what is known as the wall of champions on the exit of that chicane, but no such issues for Mex. He crosses the line. 13.6 is good enough for P3 as things currently stand. It's only Q1. We have way less than 15 drivers, so all you need to do here is just bring the car home. No need to risk anything. And Ngawako, aka D-Wax, had already invalidated, so we'll watch S-Buddha, Ngawako's teammate, instead. And Ngawako was all the way in the lofty P7 in comparison to his teammate, S-Buddha, who we're watching now, who was mired in the bottom 3. Just 9 championship points racked up since the start of the season. The King Rapture, flying the flag of Team Williams, is in P2, 112.4 for him. Here comes S-Buddha, looking to just set his banker lap and knowing that he could breathe easy and move on towards the Q2 session. Ngawako, aka D-Wax, has crossed the line once again on his attempt to go for a proper push lap. Caboza has seemingly retired his car in Sector 2. That car looks like it's still moving, so perhaps Caboza, having set his banker lap, is just happy to retire out on track. I do hope for Caboza's sake that it wasn't a proper DNF in the sense that he crashed and totaled his car, but that it was instead a voluntary retirement, which would mean he would take part in the next session. Here comes Ngawako, much more careful across the final chicane with just over 11 minutes of the session to go. He crosses the line, P7, just ahead of his teammate, marginally, it must be said. Meanwhile, Nebo had already set his banker lap. He's quite likely just content to bring his Alpine back home. His teammate is in P3 as things stand, and Nebo's effort was good enough to put him provisionally in P6 in this first qualifying session. 114.246 for Nebo, who is currently in the playoff spots. He's racked up 10 championship points, and he wants to collect as many as possible today, especially considering we have a diminished field. It's a golden opportunity for Ngabo to improve on those 10 points, possibly leapfrog Mandla, who's just 2 points ahead of him in the championship, and Sapiso, who's a further 5 points ahead. Sapiso in P15. Remember, the drivers in P17, 16, and 15 will go to a playoff. That is, of course, at the end of the season. They will be thrown to the wolves of Tier 2. They'll go into a playoffs to try and keep their spot in the top tier. But, of course, with the caliber of drivers fighting to come up in Tier 2, it's not going to be straightforward. Mandla on another attempt to set his banker lap is invalidated. So he's just moving slowly now, trying to conserve as much battery power as he can on those 1 lap old medium compound tires. Mandla has yet to set a representative time. Loveness has joined the fray. Loveness's teammate, of course, is none other than Sapiso, who we have not seen on track as yet. We'll see how Sapiso would fare if he were to join. So instead, let's see how the challenger to Seaclay's throne will fare. Sector 1. Chicane navigated cleanly. Smirch Jangle looking good with a split of a 20.078. I think we can say with a degree of confidence that we could be looking at an onboard of a driver who will quite likely, nudge Seaclay up that top spot. But remember, Seaclay is running on those mediums. We haven't seen Seaclay's true full pace. Sector 2 split of a 42.7 for Smirch Jangle. Also, not messing around, he's opted to go out on these soft compound tires, so we will see what his times will be like. Don Radico in the comment section, of course, reminding all of our viewers to like the stream. It would, of course, go a long way as far as the algorithms and visibility and search engine optimization is concerned. Here comes Jangle across the line with the quickest time of the day, 111.742. How much more pace does Jangle have in the bag? I cannot wait to see how he fares. Van Kobe under pressure. Bottom of the championship standings, unfamiliar territory for a driver who has only known, being competitive in years and seasons past. But ever since moving to this new regulation of cars, he has not been comfortable at all. Just 4 points racked up this entire season. He has got just over 7.5 minutes of this Q1 to set his banker lap and just guarantee his progression through to Q2. Here he comes now towards the line. Bad Kobe for Aston Martin P4, 113.014 for the Aston Martin driver. King Rapture is back out on track, and his best thus far is a 12.4. He's still on the same set of soft compound tires, giving it a proper go, a proper push. His teammate, Malusi the Malusi, has been missing in action for quite some time. So it's up to King Rapture to do what needs to be done as far as collecting those points for the constructors' standings are concerned. Team Williams is in second to last place in the Constructors' Championship. Of course, that is the cumulative points that both drivers have accrued. Thus, up until this point, they've collected 37 points between them, that being the King Rapture, a.k.a. Maripeng. And Mellow the Mellow has a bit of a snap and almost makes friends with the wall in Sector 2. But, like Mex, he managed to save that car, keep it clean, keep it together. And here it comes now across the hairpin towards the long back straight. And we will see what he will do between now and the end of his lap. Catching up on some of the comments, Escalo is here, Tier 2 driver, who's fighting, of course, to be in among the fighters in the top tier of Breakaway League Racing. Here comes Maripeng, King Rapture, His Royal Highness, on his push lap, which is definitely going to be slower than his initial attempt. A 112.453 was the best that he could do. This time, of course, on 3-lap old soft compound tires, not quite getting that done. Seaclay is on the same set of medium compound tires. He's coming out to give it another go, another push. Smirch Jangle was still out on track. 3-lap old soft compound tires, so he's perhaps treating this initial Q1 run as his own practice session just to get a proper feel for how this circuit out here in Canada flows. But even so, on his aging soft compound tires, he's still there and thereabouts as far as lap time is concerned. He's just a couple of hundredths of a second slower at the end of Sector 1. So impressive consistency as far as Smirch Django's speed is concerned as we get this wonderful unorthodox camera angle. Smirch Django will complete his Sector 2 split about 2.5 tenths slower than his best time up until this point. So looking good, looking comfortable is Smirch Django. Cyclé is back out on track. He's now on the main straight, and it looks like he's making way for the King Raptor. So he's not necessarily pushing. Perhaps Cyclé also just using this time, this opportunity to practice as much as he can. Loveness was hoping to have kept it clean, but sadly for him, had invalidated. So he is moving a bit slower, trying to save as much of that battery as he can. It's down. It's still at about 98%, his battery power. So we'll see how he fares. Remember to like the stream, folks. Goes a long way. Top tier Breakaway League Racing. We're watching Loveness, whose teammate Sapiso will definitely be cheering him on somewhere in South Africa. Josh, aka Damnesia, is here to join the fray. Team Alfa Romeo, Mandla's teammate. Mandla, who of course up until this point has not put in a representative time, but Loveness sends it into the wall, coming out of turn 2. Man, well, not ideal, and of course that moment with the wall meant that he invalidated again. So Loveness not exactly having the time of his life here. Mandla has been out on track possibly longer than anyone else, and with just over 3.5 minutes to go, he is really tight onto that curve coming through the hairpin, but he's managed to keep it together, and his third and final sector is going to need to be inch perfect. In terms of track limits, if not speed itself, but it looks like he plays it conservatively. Yep, hits the brakes a little bit, fourth gear through that final chicane, and will finally cross the line with his first representative time of the day, 112.826 on a fresh set of soft compound tires. Mandla is P4 as Q1 ticks towards its inevitable conclusion. Josh, aka Damnesia, needs to do what needs to be done and cross the line with his own representative effort. Here he comes now on his outlap as Loveness has just begun his second push lap. He came unstuck out of this exact corner, hit the wall last time out. It's a clean exit out of turn 2 this time for Loveness. So let's see how he fares now on this run. Clean through the chicane again. Sector 1 split coming up very, very soon. It's a 20.847. Not bad at all. He may yet be, well, challenging the likes of Rapture and possibly even Cyclé. Because that Sector 1 split was very, very good indeed. Oof, on the limit as Cyclé goes even quicker than Django on medium compound tires. 111.636 for the champion. Pips his teammate, who set his fast lap on soft. So I would hazard a guess that we are in for a tasty Q3. But here comes Loveness now. He was clean through the hairpin. A man who also needs as many points as he could possibly muster. He is in P12 in the championship standings. He's racked up 31 points up until this point. 14.2 will put him P9. Well, as Cyclé's initial attempt was a very good one. What about Josh, aka Damnesia? It's been a while since we've seen him. He's missed a couple of races. He's had a topsy-turvy season. We've mentioned he's in the bottom 3. He's level on points with Ban Kobe. They both have just 4 championship points. Damnesia, P19, probably by virtue of performances in the races thus far. Oof, very conservative coming through that chicane, but he's kept it together. Don Rabico reckons that the pole lap will be in the low to medium 1 minute 10 seconds. I cannot wait to see how that fares. Offense is in the comment section as opposed to being out in the paddock. I do believe we might see Offense racing in the main race. So just waiting for the load shedding schedule to be kinder to him. Restore power, restore the ability for Offense to show us what he is made of. But he's not looking too confident in the comment section. His Fensei reckons, well, he's just going to be winging it. And that's me paraphrasing. Josh, aka Damnesia, crosses the line. 13.8 P8 for Josh. He needs the points. He's a pacey, talented driver, but it has just not come together for him this season. Just 4 championship points. He's had 4 DNFs. He's crashed out of races 4 times this season. And he's also missed 4 races. He finished in the points in France. Came across the line in P7, so he needs to be well, as consistent as possible in attending, and B, of course, just to score those points. King Rapture still out, still pushing, still running, as we pretty much run out of time. If you haven't taken the checkered flag, King Rapture coming out of the chicane has an almighty spin, and thankfully for him, does not make acquaintance with the wall. So, Maripeg, His Royal Highness King Rapture, with a not-so royal spin. Or perhaps he was spinning as regally as Queen Elizabeth's hand on that balcony and that Buckingham Palace. But he's kept it together, has His Royal Highness the King Rapture. He comes out of Q1 as the 3rd quickest driver. Seaclay, top of the pops on those mediums. Man, oh man, what kind of pace will he have in the rest of the session? Django went 2nd quickest from the King Rapture. Mandela 4th from Bankobi. Zotal went 6th quickest. Moteo Mekwa, a.k.a. Mex, went 7th quickest. Josh, a.k.a. Damnesia, 8th from Kaboza in 9th. Loveness in 10th. And Nebo in 11th. And Gawako, a.k.a. D-Wax, and Esbuda are the AlphaTauri pair, rounding off the field in P12 and 13 respectively. Now it's Q2 coming up next. We'll get a sense of who will be getting knocked out as we build up towards our battle for pole position. Oli says, let's go. I've got my popcorn in place. He's very, very comfortable. Don Rabico says, I'll be back racing in Spain. And, of course, Fensei was also out in the comments section. And Bungani, a.k.a. Debo Crocodile, says, I believe in you, Fensei. Let's see what you've got. If you've just joined us, welcome. That is the field at the end of Q1. Aspuda, D-Wax, Nebo, Loveness, and Kaboza definitely got some work to do. Of course, there are mitigating circumstances in terms of tire compounds. Don't forget to like the stream, folks, if you have not already.
engathi kunzima ekakhuphukela athi banqobi ingathi kayahlobisa kuthi yewani ekekhuphukela banqobi manesh ephusha ndoda sahama banqobi.
Well, Bankobi, we know he's got the talent. Definitely got his work cut out for him. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, Bankobi needs to navigate Q2. Let's see what he can do. I do not expect medium tire runs, or at least not many. Seaclay topped the pops on mediums in Q1. Will he do the same this time, or will he pretty much show his cards from the very beginning? It's been beautiful weather out here in Montreal, Canada. I do wonder what we will see from some of our top runners. Wasting no time are the likes of Mandla and Kaboza, and now Zotail, coming out very, very early, not wasting a single second. They have 15 minutes in Q2 to set the fastest time possible, and only the top 10 drivers will go through to Q3 and that battle for pole position. The quicker you go, of course, the higher your standings, or the higher position you will start at the beginning of the feature race. Long way to go, of course. Have to navigate Qs 2 and 3. We are now watching Zotal. 60 points racked up thus far as Wandal Shezi gives a encouraging word towards the McLaren boys. Wandal Shezi, of course, representing McLaren in the Breakaway Racing League stable. So he's cheering on the Tier 1 drivers, that being Kaboza and Mex. This is Zotal racked up 60 championship points. He's definitely feeling much more comfortable on the racing wheel now. He did have an adaptation period, but ever since finding his feet, he feels very good. But the race starts are a factor that has impacted his races, and he has been unlucky as Zotal in the race starts, considering how many drivers have knocked into him, compromising his races. His sector 1 is clean. He comes out of turn 2 unscathed. Now towards the first chicane comes the beautiful pink and blue liveried Alpine Zotal, looking good with a 20.175 split at the end of sector 1. He navigates that second chicane without incident, carrying as much speed as possible up towards 8th gear, towards this upcoming chicane, right, then left. Clean for Zotal once again. We'll look to end sector 2, perhaps in the low 40, 3.166 is the split for Zotal at the end of sector 2. He's tight to the apex coming through the hairpin. And he now faces that long straight, as we should now start to see times trickle across the board. It could be Mandla who crosses the line first, and then Kapoza before we see the time that Zotal puts in. Yes, Mandla crosses the line, but it's not a valid time. What about Kapoza? Is that a valid time? 12.2 for Kapoza. Here comes Zotal across the line. It's 12.081. Behind Zotal is Ngawako, a.k.a. D-Wax, who slots into P3. Behind Kapoza, and the Mercedes pair is started off by Cyclade 111.097. What can Django do across the line? The answer is, well, not yet. Not a representative time from Django as yet. Mex 12.660 is good enough for P4. Ngawako gets knocked down a peg to P5. Esbuda, is he on the verge? Yes, he is. It's a clean lap thus far. What'll it be for the AlphaTauri driver? P6, 13.8 for him. Bankobi on the verge of crossing the line for his initial banker. Goes P6. And is that the King Rapture? No, it is Enable across the line. He's yet to have his representative time. So instead, it looks like Damnesia, who's still on the verge. No, it's Mandla who has invalidated again. So Mandla really wasting these soft compound tires. He's going to have to go all the way around again, or otherwise we may see Mandla perhaps opting to come all the way back into the pit. So it's Cyclade's Mercedes topping the timesheets from Zotal, Kapoza and Mex in P3 and 4, and Ngawako 5th from Bankobi and Espuda in 7th. We need to see how Mandla would fare between now and the end of his push. Here comes Josh, a.k.a. Damnesia, towards the line. It will be a 112.139, good enough for P3. So good looking for Josh there as we look to conclude this second quali session. And Nebo is up next. What can he do towards the chicane? It's clean for Nebo. Comes out unscathed, will cross the line now with a 14.465 is good enough for P9. Definitely not feeling comfortable enough to be safe to progress to the third and final quali session. Mandla has had a string of invalidations. He's now moving slowly, trying to harvest as much power as he possibly can, but he may yet be bringing it all the way back home. And Nebo also presumably possibly making his way back. Smirch Django was content just to sit in the pits and watch proceedings. Django is one whose progress we're going to be watching eagerly and carefully with just 13 drivers available on the grid. And Nebo, meanwhile, is definitely improving. By the time he got to his Sector 2 split, he had improved by more than a second. So, he's on the verge of, possibly knocking Bankobi down by a peg or two. If he can keep it clean towards the final chicane. Yes is the answer. It's a clean lap for Nebo. You have to go around more than once on a push lap. You'll come across the line. P7, 13.286. He probably will not feel safe at all, considering the likes of Rapture, Django, Loveness have yet to show us their proper push lap attempt. So, Nebo provisionally in P7. Got his work cut out for him, and as he makes his way back towards the pits, the likes of Ban Kobe are already out and given it a proper go, a proper push. This is His Royal Highness the King Rapture on his attempt with 8 minutes of this session to go. Oh, look how far he is as far as taking all those track limits. 20.278 is his split in Sector 1. Not quite as competitive as some of the drivers that we've seen earlier, but definitely up there. As things stand, that Sector 1 split is looking fairly competitive, but not quite enough to push the likes of Seachley off that top spot. Sector 2 is a 43.4, and towards the hairpin comes the King Rapture. Still good, still clean, with 7 minutes of the session to go. If you've just joined us, it's His Royal Highness the King Rapture's effort to knock them off their perch. That being the likes of possibly Nebo, Bankobi, yes, Buddha, to push them down and out of safety. Oof, he took all the track limits there coming out of that final chicane, but he, of course, did not invalidate, which is important, up to P7. So, Nebo, Bankobi, yes, Buddha, knocked down, and, they're going to have their work cut out for them. Absolutely. Loveness, Sector 1. How will he fare now? It's a 20.6 at the end of that first sector for the Haas drivers, so still looking okay. 6.5 minutes of this session to go. Being cheered on somewhere in South Africa by none other than teammate Capiso. Still looking okay, taking all those track limits without invalidating, of course. Will complete Sector 2 with a 43.708 with 6 minutes of this session to go. Loveness looking to improve on that P12 standing in the Drivers' Championship. Racked up 31 points up until this point, and he knows what he needs to do across the chicane. Keeps it clean. Careful, of course, there not to have any moment with the wall. Will cross the line. 13.4 is P10. Definitely got his work cut out for him. He's in the danger zone. Only 10 drivers are going through. So that's Buddha, Mandla, Smirch, Django. Currently the drivers that would not be eligible to go through. Meanwhile, Django's push lap suffered an invalidation. He's currently making his way around to complete his push around this lap. And here comes Mandla, who had also invalidated. Mandla, a couple of invalidations in Q1 and again in Q2. Got his work cut out for him. Just the two drivers, that being Mandla and Django, yet to set their banker laps. Django coming into the pits with 5 minutes to go. Well, perhaps he suffered a damaged wing. He's going to come all the way back. What about Mandla? Can he keep it together now? Needs to put it together. 20.3 at the end of the first sector. It's an unforgiving track, is Canada. We saw how many time penalties were racked up in Tier 2 last night. And similarly, it's unforgiving if your line is not inch perfect coming into those tricky chicanes. It's the last chance saloon for Smirch Django, so says Don Radico. Absolutely. Invalidations will not do. Sector 2 split of a 43.5 seconds for Mandla. He's kept it clean. He just needs to do exactly the same now on this final portion of the track. Of course, the trickiest and possibly riskiest place to get an invalidation is here, this chicane. Oh, he was quite aggressive there across the chicane on the right-hander, but it was clean, and it's going to be P5. Mandla breathes a sigh of relief. P5, decent push, a decent effort for him, and definitely looking very, very good at this point. Smirch Django still in the pits with 3.5 minutes of this session to go, as Buddha, who was hoping to push, has sadly also invalidated. Gonna have to go all the way around to bring it back home and secure his participation in Q3. Enko Wacko, aka D-Wax, is the latest driver. Very, very consistent season he's been having. He's gone 0.3 quicker come the Sector 1 split. So looking good for Team AlphaTauri to guarantee, at the very least, participation for one driver in Q3, as Esbuda is struggling to come up towards the top 10 as far as his times are concerned. He maintains that 3-second gain at the Sector 2 split, and Gowako D-Wax looking good. Past the slow-moving Alfa Romeo towards that final chicane. Oh, beautiful exit there for Ngawako. Will cross the line. Will it be an improvement is the question. Marginal, yes. 112.6 moves them up just one position above Mex, who is still in the pits. Now, we got to watch to see whether or not this man, Django, is going to be able to improve. Sector 1 split of a 19.9 is impressive. Very, very impressive. One of the more impressive that we've seen among the onboards up until this point. But Ciclay is ahead of him on the track. Ciclay is actually making his way out of the hairpin and on that back straight. So we're going to see whether or not Ciclay can improve on that 111.097 as Django, under pressure, needs to put something together. Here, his Sector 2 split, also looking good, was in the mid-42 seconds, I believe. King Rapture on track is following this man as Ciclay going to the 110s, 110.995 to conclude his push at the end of Q2. So that's a taste of what Ciclay has at hand as we hurtle towards the end of this qualifying session. Here comes Django clean out of the final chicane towards the line with that rear wing open. 11.549 will put him comfortably or marginally in P2. Look at that. Just a couple of hundredths of a second quicker than Zotile. But definitely definitely daylight between Ciclay and Django. That P2 is close, but no cigar. Ciclay, again, the gold standard, as he brings that Mercedes W13 back home. A beautiful 110.995 with less than a minute of this session to go. Now, Esbuda and Nebo, Loveness, they're under pressure to improve. Loveness has just come across the line with his final push, 112.721. Will it be enough? He's teetering on the brink. Ban Kobe is on his outlap. Ban Kobe, will he have enough time? Yes, he will have enough time to give it a go. Where is Esbuda? He is coming back up to the pit, so that is pretty much Esbuda's quality done. He will be out of this session. And Nebo, where is he? The answer is improving by about 2.7, or rather, let me just say, by just under 0.3 of a second. So, will that be enough? No, it may not be enough to guarantee his spot in the top 10. Loveness is significantly ahead of Nebo, who comes through the final chicane. Ban Kobe on his final push lap, retired. We were going to counter with him. And Nebo, I spoke too soon, 112.548. Puts him safely through to Q3 as things currently stand, knocking Loveness out of this quali session. Ban Kobe crashed out. Was under pressure to get it done. Where is Ngawako D-Wax? He improves. 112.392 is a P7 time for Ngawako, a.k.a. D-Wax, who guarantees his participation in the third and final quali session. The King Rapture is quite likely coming back in. He's 0.8 down on his best time, so it's not quite a push lap as far as the King Rapture is concerned. So Ciclay, as things stand, looks to be the quickest driver out here in Canada, because Django is bringing it home. So it is going to be Ciclay, who goes through the Q3 as the quickest driver on track. Django went second quickest from Zotile and King Rapture in P3 and 4 respectively. Josh, aka Damnesia, in P5 from Caboza. And Ngawako D-Wax 7th, Mandla 8th, and Nebo 9th, and Mex makes it through to Q3 by the skin of his teeth. 112.660, enough for P10. Loveness was knocked out of Q3. His participation was snuffed out by none other than Nebo, who gets who makes it a full house of Alpine drivers in Q3. So Loveness will start in P11 when the race begins. Bankobi 12th, S. Buddha 13th. I wonder if Fensei will indeed be joining us before the race kicks off. You had hoped to be doing so. That's your Q2, folks. Bankobi, 3 sets of tires was not enough to guarantee his participation in Q3, crashing out towards the end. Most of the field using 2 sets of tires, and notably, King Rapture, Damnesia, Kaboza, just the one soft compound tire used alongside Mex. So, is that advantage to them towards the end of proceedings here? Time will tell. If you've just joined us, welcome, folks. You're just in time for the third and final qualifying session to determine who will start at the front of the grid towards by the time this race kicks off in earnest. Thank you for joining the Top Tier Breakaway League Racing. Remember to like the stream. I cannot wait to see how Q3 pans out. Don Rabigo has given his thoughts on at least the kind of times we can expect. I would love to hear from you who will be sitting P1, P2, P3, respectively. Let us know in the comments. Remember to like the stream as well if you've just joined. We will see how this all fares. Tapiso is lamenting the fact that his power has yet to be restored. He would have been taking part in this race from the back of the pack. Hopefully, he can get that power restored within or before 12 minutes is up, because that is the remaining time. Well, that indeed is how much time all these drivers have to secure participation. But as far as the drivers who are out on track, well, we're going to have to see how they fare. Kaboza has saved some tires, and as things stand, he's just looking to be the first to come across the line and set his banker lap and give it a proper push, and we'll get a sense now of just how much pace Kaboza has in the bank. Thank you for joining us, Top Tier Breakaway League Racing. Kaboza, fresh off a race win last time out in Brazil. He was absolutely sensational off the line in the sprint race, gaining so many positions from the jump. But this time he'll be looking to be fighting from the front from the very beginning. On board we go now. Turn 1, clean. Turn 2, little bit of action on the curb. Has a moment of correction. That'll definitely cost him, but he's kept it together. It's only his banker lap, remember? Oh, man. The limits that Kaboza is willing to go on. That's such a tricky curve. You get it wrong, it's an invalidation. 20.135 to begin his Sector 2. Opens up that rear wing. It is the first DRS zone of this track, of course. Oh, again, on the limit. Kaboza doing what needs to be done. Towards the hairpin, passes a slow-moving Alpine. Kisses the apex ever so marginally. Looks to get a clean exit. But does he? Is, of course, the eternal question. Hurdles now down the back straight towards the final chicane, where we've seen drivers have moments on the exit, but Kaboza is going to look to be inch perfect. Clean entry. No issues in terms of heaviness or having a twitch. Kaboza across the line, 12.083. Here comes Mandla. It's been clean thus far from him. Or rather, Damnesia, 12.060 for Josh, who goes quickest. There's an Alpine on the verge of crossing the line. Is it Zotal? Yes, but he had invalidated. Cikle goes quickest of all on his first push lap, 111.112 for Cikle. And it looks like the King Rapture, His Royal Highness, is on the verge of also crossing the line. 111.7 will put him in P2. And Django pips the King Rapture. He nudges the Williams driver off that P2 spot. 111.221 for Smirch Django up until this point. Time starting to trickle in. Nebo, Ingawako, and Zotal still need to show us what they've got. D-Wax has invalidated. And Nebo is out on track. Giving it a proper push. Here he comes now towards the hairpin. Clean exit down towards the back straight now for Nebo, sector 3, third and final sector. That rear wing is open. And towards the final chicane. Heart and mouth moment there, of course. So easy to invalidate if you do not get the entry into that final chicane. Right, it's P8 provisionally for Nebo. C-Clay, provisional pole position is back in the pits. We know C-Clay can do a 110. I do wonder what Django has in the bag. Ngowako's Sector 1 split is in the 22nd mark. Let's see now how his Sectors 2 and 3 fare. Zotao is now coming out. He was content to allow these guys just to keep on running, laying even more rubber out onto the track, and now Zotao will come out on an evolving track to give it his absolute best. Zotao's teammates currently in P8, and Ngowako's teammate was knocked out in Q2. So he is AlphaTauri's only hope as far as points are concerned in this quality session. In towards the final chicane on the limits, and comes out towards the line with 11.959 P5 for Ngowako. Decent effort for him. Goes off track on the exit of turn 2, having secured that provisional P5 spot. Zotao may have something to say about that, as will Kapoza and Josh. Even Mandla, who's currently in the pits as things currently stand. Zotao, next up. There's an Alpha, or rather a McLaren, making its way out of the pit lane. Kapoza was, of course, just paying attention to his own attempt. He's clean there through the chicane. Here comes his Sector 1 split. It's a 20.173, so a split comparable to the kind that Kapoza put in when we were watching his onboard earlier. Can Zotao better the McLaren driver over Sectors 2 and 3? Here it comes now into the chicane, 5th gear, up to 6th on the exit. Still good, still clean from the Alpine driver, 43.086 at his Sector 2 split. A little bit of a bouncy moment as far as network is concerned. Whoa, there was a McLaren which went completely off track at the hairpin. I wonder who that was. But thankfully for both McLarens, they were on an outlap. So that was bizarre to see. We're watching Zotao trying to conclude his final effort here. Here he comes across the line. It's going to be a 1:12.088 P9. Definitely got some work to do. Django coming back into the pits. We're hoping to see what he has got in the bag. Pace-wise. Ooh, Josh, aka Damn Ninja, came unstuck at the chicane after in Sector 2. Did he lose a wing? No, wing is still intact, but Damn Ninja is going to have to go all the way around again and give it another push from scratch. Kapoza, meanwhile, trying to improve on that 112.083, will be smiling from ear to ear because it's a possible tow, courtesy of that slow-moving Alfa Romeo, but they've gone out of the way, so Kapoza is going to have to make do on his own energy, his own power, his own width. Final chicane is clean for Kapoza. Here it comes now towards the line. 11.5 improves by half a second and slots right behind both Mercedes driver. Kapoza looking good. What about his teammates? Well, the answer is he's improved by about a tenth. Now making his way across the third and final sector. Up until this point, his best was a 111.842. So will he even knock his teammate off his perch? The answer is no, because Mateo Mekwa, aka Mex, brings it straight back into the pits. Mambla, on his push attempt, has improved by a couple of tenths. Fensei has arrived, as Don Rabico notes, so Fensei, at the very least, will be taking part in this race. Tapiso, we are cheering you on, hoping that your power is restored in time. Mandla on the limit there, keeps it clean. No invalidation, this lap is still valid. His teammate is surpassed. Mandla improves by just over 2/10. Oof, man. Mandla having a bit of a moment with the wall. I do wonder how much time that'll cost him cumulatively, of course. Here he comes across towards the line. He's abandoned his lap. Mandla abandoned his lap, leaving Ngawako, aka D-Wax, free to carry on. But it seems Ngawako is possibly only on his out lap. So this is Ngawako starting his push lap from scratch. We will instead hop over to Nebo, who has improved by about 2.5 up until this point. He's got about 2 minutes. Oh, he's invalidated. And Nebo, who was running in P10, that might be that as far as his prospects are concerned. He's got 2 minutes. Oh, it's either he's just going to stay out on track and keep pushing. That red light isn't flashing. He may have enough fuel on board, you know. Well. Thankfully for him, he could just save his battery, whatever is remaining, between now and the end, and give it another proper push, a proper go. Mandla had given up. His lap was looking good. He had improved by about 2/10. And then coming out of the hairpin, he just opted to back out of that push lap. Here it comes now. Same hairpin, had a moment with the wall this time. So is he giving it a proper send, a proper push this time? He's run out of fuel, run out of battery. It's now or never, Mandla. As he now looks to line it up. Nope, he's definitely coming all the way back into the line. Mex is the next driver that we'll watch as the two Mercedes drivers, a protagonist in that battle for pole position, are making their way out. Here comes Mex towards the line. Definitely not going to be enough to improve. This could yet be Mex's effort to actually start his push lap, so we'll catch up with him a little bit later. Zotao is further ahead of the McLaren driver. In fact, marginally ahead. What can he do now towards the end? He's currently running in P9 is Zotao. Oh, has a huge spin at the beginning of Sector 2. So that's his prospects pretty much done and dusted. Django is fighting to keep his teammate at bay on board of the Mercedes drivers. We go now. He's improved by 2/10. Is that enough? It would be enough to knock Cicle off his perch, but you do wonder how much Cicle will be improving. We've already seen a time in the 1 minute 10s thus far. Can Django find himself in the 1 minute 10s? It's going to need to be sensational between now and the end. And Ngawako D-Wax has crashed out coming out of the hairpin. He's improved by 3/10 at the end of Sector 2. Django, given it a proper push, will have the first say as far as that battle for pole position is concerned. Kapoza opted not to come out to challenge these top two drivers, so Kapoza will be hoping that King Rapture does not knock him off his perch. Will King Rapture come into the pits? Here comes Django. Final chicane. Does he have a little bit of a moment with the wall? It's going to be close. Django towards the line is going to be a 110.999. He improves. What about Cicle? He's giving it a go. He's definitely improved. And Cicle will come across the line. 110.425 is the quickest driver by some margin. And Cicle, with championship pedigree, comes across the line to stamp his foot down firmly on the entire rest of the grid, to snatch pole position from Smirch Django at the death. And Nevo on his final push has been invalidated. This is Josh, aka Damnesia, towards the line. Last chance saloon for the Alfa Romeo driver. He will come across the line. P6 will start in that sixth spot towards the end of this session. Josh, who has been out of commission for quite some time this season, comes home to start this race in P6, and he needs to convert this into a decent points finish. We know how much pace he has, but he now has to keep it clean, keep it together for 35 laps, and I do wonder what the weather has in store for all these drivers. It's been a beautiful dry qualifying session as Mpatso Piri cheers on the pair of Mercedes drivers who have given us a heck of a show here towards the end of proceedings. Smirch Django within that 1 minute 10 second. He breaks that barrier. 1 minute 10 seconds, 0.999. But look at that. Half a second slower than his teammate, who has just obliterated the entire field. If you've just joined us, that, folks, is your top 10 as far as the starting grid is concerned. Seaclay from Django from Caboza, who starts a second behind the top two, and a second behind Seaclay, rather. King Rapture, Maripang, His Royal Highness, will start P4 from Mex in P5. Josh, aka Damnesia, will start P6, and Gowacko Dwack 7th. Mandla, P8, Zotal 9th, and Nebo in that 10th spot. Thank you for joining us. It's the top tier Breakaway League Racing. Like the stream, subscribe to our channel. We have some fantastic entertainment in store, possibly, for all of you. So let's see how they all fare in Canada as we get that beautiful overhead shot of the hairpin. Ban Kobe has been dipping in and out of this session. Network issues slightly, but hopefully he will be racing when we do start this here race. Oh man, it's a beautiful day out here in Montreal, Canada. Looks like a dry start to the race as we get a view of the plush seats, that being the Paddock Club, who have a bird's eye view of pit stops and indeed pit entries, pit exits, and the main straight. Beautiful seats that we have over there. And we now look forward to what could be a sensational race out here in Montreal, Canada. Lancelot responding there to that final part of qualifying. Seaclay ecstatic with his efforts. Crash says, Rabico, you're not racing? Don Rabico says, hey, the champ needs a win. It's been a while. A little bit of banter there between Don Rabico, who's, not shy to show his level of confidence. Don Rabico was humbled last time out. He did, of course, vow that all the podium places were taken. And, of course, a couple of errors and some coming together as denied Don Rabico another podium finish last time out in Brazil. Instead, Fence made his presence felt, clawing his way up the pack, taking advantage, did Fence, of the sprint race, and Fence did sensationally well to come home across the line in Brazil in second place. Now Fence will have it all to do from the back of the pack this time out. Can he put something decent together? He's got pace. He's got the talent. Now it's up to Fence. Flash by Sandley, a.k.a. Sandley Sango, says, turn one, let's see something exciting. Selby Sango's idea of something exciting is a crash or a safety car. He quite enjoys a sprinkling of drama, does Sandley, as we're about to see these drivers in go around for their formation lap. Notably, top five opting to start this race on hard compound tires. It's a mixed bag if you consider the full course of the field. Josh, aka Damnesia, the first of the medium tire runners. And it's a midfield medium tire pack from Damnesia all the way down to Zotal in P9. His teammate and Neville has opted to start on hot compound tires, as has Loveness, running in 11th. Ban Kobe dipping in and out of the session, courtesy of network issues. We hope to see him possibly start this race properly. He's in P12. S. Buddha, 13th. Fence has, of course, a challenge of his own. Will start this race in P14, medium tires. Cepiso surpasses Fence. Out on track, Cepiso will start at the back of the pack. Thank you for joining us. It's the top tier Breakaway League Racing. Remember to like the stream. We will have 35 laps of racing around this here circuit in Montreal, Canada. A beautiful day out here, and we're looking forward to some fantastic racing as the champion Seaclay weaves to the left and to the right, trying to get those tires up to temperature for the start of this here race. His teammate Smirch Django is an absolute threat at the start of the race, as is Caboza. Remember what the McLaren driver did at the start of the sprint race in Brazil last time out. We may yet be in line for something tasty, as Sanley Selby Sango has asked for in the comment section. We may yet get that.
uCaboza angabatrapa kule 10-1. Be careful, uCaboza unale special something yabo. No rapture ningamnyathi lo muntu i-team Williams. I wish you mele bekakhona yibe kazobonisa something. Watch out for uRapture noCaboza no idea. No Django. Amarusi kama race start yakhe sewangcono.
Yes, Seaclay has definitely improved his race starts. He did struggle at the start of the season, but as the races have trickled on in the intervening weeks and months, Seaclay has gotten way better at the start of his races. Now they line up to make sure that their positions are inch perfect at the start of proceedings. As some of you were mentioning, that Sikle quite enjoys this track, Inati, so says Inati. We will see how it all pans out as 3 lights becomes 4, and it's the only time South Africans look forward to the lights going out. And here we go. We are racing in Montreal, Canada. Sikle gets a clean start, but look at King Rapture attacking Kaposa. Smirch Jangle looks to hold his own, but he hands off into P2. Oh, Rapture goes off the line, coming through turns 2, but he stays in P4. Kaposa hangs on to that P3 spot. It looks like Joshua Damnesia's gained a spot at the start. Mex has been one of the big losers, dropping down 2 places, but it's still clean. No carnage, no wing loss, no huge damage. Zoltal is hanging on to that P9 spot at the start of this race. Fensei, what a start for him, gaining 4 places. Could it be 5 by the time we get to the end of lap 1? Well, time will tell. Fensei keeping it clean as they all come through towards this beginning of the second sector. It's clean, no huge major incidents and accidents for the top 3 and indeed for the midfield. It looks like Zotal and Mandla are having a huge squabble in the midfield, but they've managed to keep it clean. This is the viewpoint from the King Rapture, who thought about going on the inside of the McLaren, but yes, Kaposa goes wide. It's going to be an opportunity for King Rapture, His Royal Highness, to show what royalty is made of out here in Monaco, in Canada, I beg your pardon. He's just a 10th behind Kaposa, as Fensei has gained a further position further back. He goes on the inside, and King Rapture has overtaken the McLaren down toward the final chicane, and Kaposa will have to bide his time and go for a switcheroo. Could it be? Because Kaposa is wheel to wheel with the King Rapture, but it looks like the Williams has the superior straight line speed. Here comes Josh, a Damnesia on the outside of the McLaren, and it's going to turn into the inside line into turn 2, and Kaposa in 6s and 7s down to P5, coming out of the exit of turn 2. It's a beautiful start by Josh, aka Damnesia, gaining 2 places in 2 laps, looking absolutely good. He now needs to keep those mistakes far from his repertoire in the intervening laps. Long way of racing still to go, and Lambo crashes out in lap 2 of 35. Desperate for points is in Lambo, but he is not going to be able to improve. He crashes out, bringing out a virtual safety car in lap number 2 of 35. Breathless start to this here race in Monaco as Ban Kobe rejoins proceedings. Thankfully, we'll be able to take place. We'll be able to participate in this year race. It's yellow flags all over the track, folks, and the top 2 have managed to keep track position. That being Sikle and Smirch Django, as we watch them lead this race to come across the line. Lap 2 will become lap 3. And they are still running in formation there. His Royal Highness King Rapture. Beautiful start for him. It's going to be P3. Virtual safety car has ended. And we're back racing once again out here in Canada. This is the viewpoint from Josh, aka Damnesia, running in P4. He's gained a couple of positions, of course, claiming the scalp of Kaposa, among others. Now hunting down the top 3, but doesn't seem to have the pace to be able to keep up with the likes of Sikle, Django, and His Royal Highness, the King Rapture, of course. Let's take a look now to see how the rest of Josh, aka Damnesia's lap fares here. Behind him is Kaposa by less than half a second. Down towards the chicane they come, and it's a clean navigation of that chicane as Kaposa gets even closer to the back of Josh, aka Damnesia. Behind Kaposa is Ingawako, aka D-Wax, who's fallen behind by about 1.7 seconds up until this point. Beautiful shot of the hairpin. Here comes Ingawako, who is being hunted down by Kaposa's teammate. It's Mex, who is within half a second of Ingawako in lap 3. He opens up his rear wing, does Mex, hunting down the AlphaTauri, and Mantla is looking to stay in touch with these two. Here comes Mex, thinking about diving on the inside, but he was not close to get that move done into the final chicane. Mex is going to have to bide his time, but as he does so, Cecily crosses the line with a 1:15.182. Quickest driver thus far. Mex is hunting down the AlphaTauri, but he's not close enough to get this move done at this particular point. Turn 2, and Gawako D-Wax goes wide. Mex may yet have an opportunity here if he can bide his time towards, of course, that back straight. If he can stay close enough to Ingawako, he may yet have an opportunity to dive in on one of these corners, or indeed the hairpin before that before the back straight in Sector 3. Mex still looking okay, but he's got his work cut out for him. hunting down Ngawako. Meanwhile, it's Buddha and Loveness are fighting it out. Looks like it's Buddha. Loveness and Bankobi, who has managed to join the grid. He overtakes Loveness, does Bankobi, and he's now up to P12. Now within 2 positions of getting into the points, but Bankobi needs so much more. Those network issues costing him dearly. Now having to fight his way all the way down from the bottom of the pack, P12. And he's going to have the Spectre of the Haas driver to fight off. Loveness running a second behind Bankobi, and Sapiso, who is, of course, struggling at the back of the pack, started at the back. He's still mired in that P14 spot. Fensei becomes the first driver to rack up a 3-second time penalty, possibly coming out of that final chicane. So it is a track which is unforgiving as far as track limits, and therefore time penalties eventually are concerned. Yellow flag through this sector. I do wonder who may have had a slight incident. We do not see any slow moving cars. It looks like Tepiso is falling way behind the pack. Yeah, so Tepiso may have been the driver to bring out that yellow flag. Fensei hunting down Mandla. Now, to start his Sector 2, it's a very, very tight midfield pack. Fensei got a couple of overtakes done at the beginning of this race, but in his attempt to try and huff and puff his way up the pack, he's racked up that time penalty already, so he's going to have to keep it clean as he still tries to keep a semblance of aggression between now and the end of this race. Long way to go. Mandla tries to stay tight towards the apex, but it looks like Sensei was on the brink of getting something clean together there, but not quite close enough to get that move done. Fensei, or rather Mex, has DRS, rear wing is open, but he's not going to be close enough to attack Ngawako, aka D-Wax, as lap 5 becomes lap 6 of a total 35. Here comes Mex on the outside of Ngawako, wheel to wheel. Ngawako has the inside line, and Mex taking the long way around. Of course, outside becomes inside through turn 2, and Mex gets a beautiful overtake done. He surpasses Ngawako and is now running 1.7 seconds behind his teammate. Ngawako, it's not over just when he thought he had to think about that. He now has to contend with the Spectre of Mandla behind him. Bankobi has left the session again. Possible network issues. Bankobi is going to slip and tumble down the pack here as Mandla is trying to effect an overtake on Ngawako, aka D-Wax, here in lap number 6 of 35. Kaposa becomes the second driver to rack up a time penalty. Let's get back to the battle for the race lead. Smirch Jangle has been there or thereabouts, still within half a second of his teammate. The drivers of the top 3 opting to start this race on hard compound tires. Django, is he now thinking about it? He goes side by side, wheel to wheel, and Smirch Django was ahead coming into the final chicane here. He gets that overtake done on the back straight, and he's now going to hope to build a gap towards between himself and C-Clay. Crosses the line, the quickest man on track, 114.252. C-Clay is now hoping to stay in touch of his teammate. Superior power as far as ERS is concerned. C-Clay, despite being in the lead for most of this race, still has about 86% of his battery power, while Django is still at about 65 in comparison. So, top 2 drivers once again content to stay within the DRS of each other, within a second of each other, and just hang on to the coattails of whoever is leading, and just make sure that they put as much pressure as possible on whoever is the leading driver. Django gets a cleaner exit coming out of that particular chicane. That gap now 8 tenths. So Django gaining a couple of tenths as we have a yellow flag in sector 2. Looks like it might be Loveness who may have had a moment after overtaking the ghost of Bankobi, whose network is really seeing him struggle here. So sadly for Bankobi, really struggling, and that will not do him any good. Of course, mired at the bottom of the championship standings today would have been a good opportunity to possibly claim some points, but that network really making sure that Bankobi comes unstuck again and again. Fensei makes it a 6 seconds worth of time penalties. Ah, man. So Fensei and Kaboza, the only 2 drivers to rack up time penalties in 8 laps of racing out here in Canada. Josh, aka Damnesia, started on mediums, hunting down the King Rapture. He's within a second, so he's got DRS. But look at that. Battery difference. Josh has about 13% versus Fensei, who has marginally more, about 22 or so percent. Behind them is Kaboza, who's struggling to make sure that those time penalties don't come back to bite him by the time he gets to the end of his race. As Buddha becomes the first driver to come into the pits in lap 8 of 35. He is now in the pits. It looks like, oh, Damnesia may have had a huge moment. What happened to Josh? As I was watching the timing tower, he completely came unstuck, and now Kaposa has been promoted up to P4, meaning King Rapture can breathe a huge sigh of relief because, well, Damnesia was on his tail, but, well, not quite, not now. Let's get back to this midfield DRS train. All the way from Fensei. Zotal goes on the inside of Ngawako, make a D-Wax. And before the braking zone, he gets that move done. And Ngawako, once again, being overtaken on that specific portion of the track. Perhaps struggling with straight line speed, because Mex got it done on a fast section of the track. So Ngawako, slipping and sliding down the standings now. He's P8, and it's not exactly going to be solace for him because he is now being hunted down by Josh, aka Damnesia, who's hoping to recover from that mistake a little bit earlier on. Meanwhile, at the front of the pack, Django had briefly gone more than a second ahead of Cycle, and that gap hovers at about a second. So Django fighting to break out of Cycle's DRS. Cycle having to use a lot more of that battery power at this particular point of the race. And Ngawako, aka D-Wax, has fought back. Meanwhile, in that midfield battle, he overtook Zotal, who loses another place to Romeo, aka Mandla, who takes the outside line and overtakes Zotal and finds himself up to P7. I do wonder if the Alpine driver has taken some wing damage. And now look at that, Damnesia versus D-Wax. Again on the straight, D-Wax loses the place. Josh gaining that place. He's now up to 6th position in lap number 10 of 35 here. So many overtakes all over the pack. It is a fierce battles, folks. And Josh, who made that huge mistake, he was there and thereabouts in the top 4 places, now having to claw his way up the midfield. Next up is Mex. I do wonder how aggressive Josh will be. Mandla becomes the latest driver to rack up a 3-second time penalty. Buddha has also done that as far as drivers with penalties are concerned, but Buddha is all the way at the back of the pack in this 10th of 35 laps around this here circuit in Canada. On board now with Mandla towards the chicane. He's braver on the brakes. Of course, he wasn't as close as the other drivers in this DRS train are to each other, so he could afford to be. And here they come now towards the hairpin, who will be brave. Mandla definitely took a tighter line compared to Zotal, who seems to be struggling for traction in these braking zones, and he's now within the clutches of Mandla. Meanwhile, Cycle at the front of the pack. He was hovering outside the DRS of Django at some point, but he's biting back. And with about half of his battery power remaining, he's within half a second of his teammate who leads this race. Mercedes 1-2 leading this race by a factor of 4.5 seconds. Ban Kobe once again dipping in and out of the session. Network issues, seeing the Aston Martin driver struggling at the back of the pack. Fensei, man, that makes it 9 seconds worth of time penalties for Fensei in lap 11 of 35. It's not looking good for the Red Bull driver, who was also comfortable last time out in Brazil. This time, well, making it a time penalty shootout between himself and the rest of the grid. Fensei leading those stakes, 9 seconds worth of time penalties with a lot of racing still to go. Cycle hunting down his teammate, 55% worth of battery power. And Django, who has done what he can to stay ahead, is at about 32% comparatively. Cycle much more comfortable coming through that final chicane. He bridges that gap ever so slightly. And of course, takes advantage of that rear wing being open in the DRS zone. And inches to within half a second of his teammates. Josh, on his fight back and his claw back, also racks up a time penalty in the midfield. As we've recently mentioned, Josh's next potential overtake victim is Moteo Mekwa, aka Mex. Here they come now, exit of turn 2. Josh has used up so much of his battery power. That red light was flashing, meaning he was hovering at the 10% or less mark. So Josh being very aggressive with how he uses his battery, trying to put Mex under pressure, but instead his own track limit pressures have resulted in that 3-second time penalty. He opens up that rear wing, does Josh, just before the chicane, but these guys in P5 and 6 respectively have built up a healthy gap, 1.5 seconds between Josh and Ngawako, who is behind them. So yeah, it's a healthy little gap that they managed to build up, and Josh almost touching the rear wing of Mex through the hairpin. Mex gets a nice clean exit. Josh will have DRS, but will he go for it? He's draining whatever is left of his battery power on board with the Alfa Romeo driver, who thought about it but was not close enough to go for the dive. Van Kobe racks up a time penalty at the back of the pack, and Josh, aka Damnesia, will have to bide his time and go for it at another time of this here race. Meanwhile, it's a tasty DRS tasty battle in the DRS train, I should rather say. Zotal got a cleaner exit, seemingly. Ooh, Fensei has a little bit of a twitch as he hunts down Mandla ahead of him. Mandla is on Zotal's tail. Mandla is within 3/10 of the Alpine driver, who has yet to rack up a time penalty here, but is just trying to get out of the clutches of this DRS train. It's not going to be easy. Fensei on his fight back, trying to put Mandla under huge pressure here. Towards the hairpin! No, towards the chicane comes the DRS train, and Fensei was not quite close enough to get that move done. But the hairpin and the exit there might be an opportunity. Mandla makes contact with Zotal, who then loses his bearings and slips down to P10. Mandla compromising Zotal's exit. Coming out of that hairpin, Zotal will not be happy with that. Mandla, possibly with an apologetic hand, but will look to fight off Fensei, who goes on the outside of the Alfa Romeo driver, who will break later. They make contact coming through the final chicane, and Mandla will now lose that position. Zotal back to P9, overtaking Mandla, who had hit him a little bit earlier. Things getting feisty here in the midfield. Mandla now looking to fight back, but he's really running out of battery power. Look at that. His red light would be flashing. Just 11% of his battery remaining. Mandla, with that time penalty, now looking to claw his way back into the business end, if you will, of this DRS train. Hunting down Zotal, who has not been as aggressive in the traction zones. But Zotal manages to get a little bit of breathing room between himself and Mandla. Stretches that gap to about 7/10 as they now make their way through the third sector and make that dash towards that hairpin where things really started to get tasty in the previous lap. Beautifully dramatic race we have got here, as I just want to give you a sense of how the gap is looking towards the front. 7.6 seconds is the gap that King Rapture has to the race leader. Meanwhile, this midfield battle that we're watching, Mandla opts to come into the pits. He was about 22 seconds behind the race leader. Remember, he's got that time penalty to contend with, and as he comes in, I do wonder, Loveness expectedly would possibly surpass him. He will now fit those hard compound tires in lap 15 of 35. So still a lot of racing to go. Mandla becomes one of only one of only three drivers to have had their mandatory pit stop. Tepiso racks up a time penalty for track limit incursions. Let's get back now to the battle for the race lead. Smirch Jangle leads the race. He's still the quickest man on track. 1:14.252 is the benchmark as far as those times are concerned. And his teammate Seaflate is just happy just to stay within DRS and charge up his battery as much as he can. Jangle has about 33% of his battery power remaining, so once again, perhaps at some point Jangle would equally just be happy to get into Seaflate's, or rather allow Seaflate to lead this race and just to push or pull everyone along while Jangle tries to charge his battery. 41% worth of battery power that the race leader has remaining. Meanwhile, in the midfield, They're all starting to come into the pits. 3 in this lap. Fensei, Zotal, and Ingawako, aka D-Wax. Fresh set of hards for all of these drivers, and Mandla was hoping to effect a decent undercut. Remember, he comes out just behind Zotal, who has those cold, hard tires. And Mandla, at this point, those tires would have been pushing and going for a lap, so he will have definitely more to say. His tires will have an advantage at this point as we get that sweeping helicopter shot. Mandla right on Zotal's tail. Lap 16 of 35. Will look to get this move done as quickly as possible. Possibly on the upcoming straight, but the further they go, of course, then the warmer Zotal's tires get, and the higher Zotal's chances of defending this possible overtake are concerned. Mandla used up so much of his battery trying to make sure that his earlier pit stop was an effective undercut. But at this point, Zotal has significantly more power, battery power. Look at that. He squeezes whatever is left of his battery power just to try and build that advantage to Mandla, who does have DRS, but might not have enough in the bag to get close enough to overtake coming into the final chicane. And Zotal, coming into lap 17, make sure that he stays ahead. Josh, aka Damnesia, had already pitted, and he's the quickest man on track, as you would have seen a couple of seconds ago. Tindo says, you know what? This track is Monaco 2.0 as far as those risks of sending it into walls and possibly getting time penalties are concerned. Well, it's a tricky track, but as things stand, with 17 laps gone, 14 drivers are still running. If you've just joined us, this is the top tier of Breakaway League Racing. And Mandla is trying to get this move done, but he's not close enough. Meanwhile, back at the front, the top two has remained unchanged. Django and Seaflake have interchanged the race lead as we get a yellow flag in Sector 3, which is quickly cleared out. These guys have stayed in the top two unchallenged pretty much since the start of this race. And in lap 18, it looks like Django may be on the verge of lapping Tapiso. Man, oh man, oh man. Tapiso at the back of the pack on the verge of being lapped. It looks like Ban Kobe has already been lapped in lap 18 of 35. On board with the chasing Seaclay. Remember, these guys did start on those hard tires, so they were inevitably going to run longer. At this point, Tapiso could be seeing yellow, or rather blue flags, indicating that he needs to make way for the race leaders to surpass him on track. Seaclay has been circumspect with the way that he's used his battery, and he's managed to stay within the clutches, and now Seaclay seems to be going on the attack. He thought about it before turn one, but he was not close enough to get that move done. Tindo, to answer your question, Bankobi has been having network issues. He's been dipping in and out of the session, as from Seaclay's vantage point, you start to see the blue flags that race control is waving towards Tapiso, giving him the notice, the impetus, the push just to get out the way and allow the top two to race without the hindrance of a slow-moving car. So Tapiso not having such a great day at the back of the pack. He knows what needs to be done, does Tapiso. These top two, I would remind you, are at the business end, the sharp end of this championship. Django has 206 championship points. Seaclay, 177 points. So small margins. A race win for Seaclay here goes a long way, and with just 4 races of this championship to go, it's really, really imperative that you get what you can get as far as all these championship points are concerned. So Seaclay staying within the clutches, but not yet getting things done. Look at that. Fensei, 17 seconds worth of time penalties. He is under duress, being hunted down by Zotal, who has managed to fall out of the clutches of Mandla. On board now with the Alpine driver. He's going for it. on this main straight. Will look to get this overtake done and dusted before that chicane, but he's on the outside. Who will be braver on the brakes? The answer is, well, they were both fairly equal on when they chose to brake there, but Zotal was not close enough to get that move done, and because of his compromised line through that final chicane, he slips out of the clutches of Fence. He's almost out of DRS. Zotal got his work cut out once again. Back to the race leaders. When will they pit? Oh, looks like Seatley gets a far cleaner exit. Contact coming out of that hairpin and down towards the main straight. Who will come into the pits first? Both drivers have DRS, courtesy of that slow-moving car ahead of them. Is this a scramble for that pit lane? Yes, it is, as far as Django is concerned, or Seatley is concerned, rather. He opted to push as hard as he can, and considering that he came in first, he will hope to have the undercut done and dusted on his teammates. The King Rapture moves up to P2, courtesy of Seatley coming into the pit. But remember, it's not that simple, because His Royal Highness the King Rapture as well as Kaboza have yet to come into the pit. So at this point, with Seatley having come in, Django is going to huff and puff and push as hard as he can, as Damnesia gets a fastest 114.019. Smirch Django is pushing as hard as he can to make sure that Seatley does not get an undercut on him. And at this point, Seatley, who had been saving up his battery power, I would imagine Seatley would be pushing as hard as he can. Yes, look at that. Seatley was using his battery before that chicane. And right now, Django, if you look down on the track map on your bottom right of your screen, Django is down on that main straight, pushing, hustling as fast as he can. If this will be a pit stop, I beg your pardon, for him, trying to make sure that he gets out ahead of his teammate. But Seatley is absolutely sending it, using that battery down this back straight. When will Rapture and Kaboza come into the pits eventually? Here comes Seatley now. Will absolutely be pushing it. He might yet be in the pound seats, and Django has to battle those cold mediums. Seatley overtakes his teammate, and it looks like a beautiful, significant undercut, because right now Seatley is ahead by 1.3 seconds. Ahead of his teammate. Yellow flag in Sector 2 looks like a slow-moving Tsapiso who may have brought out that yellow flag, but the gap between the top net P1 and 2 drivers now is about 1.7 seconds, and growing 1.8. It may yet be 2 seconds by the end of this lap if Django is not careful. Meanwhile, King Rapture, Kaboza have yet to come into the pits. At this point, well, they would love a safety car, wouldn't they? To bring them back into the reckoning for a potential fight for those podium places is concerned. Everybody has had their pit stop, as Buddha coming into the pits now. Was it a possible wing change, I wonder? Well, it's a fresh set of mediums, but Seatley overtakes a slow-moving Kaboza up to P2, but it is a net P1, of course, considering that Rapture has yet to come into the pits. And Seatley, who was already pitted, is now on Rapture's tail, who stayed out. And he's the quickest man on track with that time in the 1:13. Seatley, the champion, in firm control, firm command of this race. Kaboza has that time penalty to contend with, is about 1.5 seconds behind him, and a further 1.5 seconds behind is this man, Smirch Django, as the likes of Liddy and Don Rabico are commending Seatley for that performance. A beautiful undercut, well, pretty much ice cold in its execution, and Seatley now in firm control, firm command of this race, hunting down the P1 running King Rapture, who still has to come into the pits. Django's got his work cut out. If you've just joined us, thank you for choosing Breakaway League Racing. It's the top tier in Canada. This is Moteo Mekwa, aka Max, who is mired in a midfield battle with the likes of Fence and Zotal. Zotal has the pound seats, the front row seats to this battle between Max and fencing. If you've just joined us, remember to like the stream. Like the stream, subscribe to our channel, and we are now watching Zotal hunting down Fensei and Mex. Zotal has managed to keep it clean and keep things without incident. Mex is going on the attack. Meanwhile, he thought about going on the inside of Fensei, but he was not close enough to get that move done. Fensei on those hard compound towers is going to have to fight for his life here to defend from Mex, who still gets an equally clean exit. Mex's battery power is starting to scream here, so he may yet be at risk of being overtaken himself, because Zotal, who's within DRS of these two, does have a significant advantage of battery power. Oh, who's that slow-moving car? Was that Tapiso? Possibly Tapiso, who came completely stuck there at that part of the track. They just ghosted past them, did these three. Let's go, Max, says Nintendo Wii in the comment section, cheering on the McLaren driver as usual. Comment, like, subscribe, so says Man Ray in the comment section. Meanwhile, Django is up to P2, courtesy of His Royal Highness the King Rapture, finally coming into the pits. The King Rapture pushed those hard tires for 23 laps and will have a fresh set of mediums with about 11 laps of racing still to go. So King Rapture will have the advantage in his battle with Josh, aka Damnesia, by the time he comes out of the pits. Let's hop back on board with Zotal now, who had the front row view to Mex's exit of that final chicane. Josh, aka Damnesia, is ahead of the King Rapture, who is now warming up his brand new medium compound tires. So this battle has been tight lap after lap, but no significant overtakes thus far. Mex has been trying to pile the pressure on the Red Bull ahead of him, but has not been able to get this move done. 10 laps of racing to go. Everyone from P3 down to Mex in 7th has racked up a time penalty. Fensei, who's ahead of Mex, has a huge mountain to climb as far as time penalties are concerned. Seclet, quickest man on track again. 113.3 is Django. As I said that, Django pipped Seclet to be the quickest man on track. Django is falling to about 3 seconds behind. Zotal, coming out of the hairpin, makes contact with the wall, and that's Zotal's front wing gone, and possibly Zotal's prospects to finish in the points absolutely pulverized, as was his wing over there. Unforced error by Zotal, trying to chase down Mex and Fensei, now has to replace his wing and come into the pit. Oh, man. Nightmare scenario for Zotal, as Damnesia opts to go aggressive with a set of soft compound tires in lap 26 of 35. Those softs will definitely be screaming towards the end of proceedings here. Zotal gets a fresh wing and a fresh set of medium compound tires, but finds himself outside the points. Now we're going to have to hunt down Loveness. Zotal, unforced errors, coming back to bite him once again. This is Caboza, who pitted a couple of laps ago. Ahead of him is Royal Highness, the King Rapture. King Rapture, notably, a whole 22 seconds behind the leading pair of Mercedes drivers. What can Caboza do on exit here? The answer is try stay within DRS, because he's about 7/10 of a second behind the King Rapture, which means he will have DRS open at the rear wing and try again a little bit of an advantage. He's trying to spare his battery power down the main straight. No need to use it if you don't sense a guaranteed chance of an overtake. So says Caboza down that stretch of track. So he just tucks right behind the Williams, which is content to hang on to that P3 spot, a possible memorable podium place for His Royal Highness the King Rapture, if he can keep it clean. A lot of racing still to go. Lap 27 of 35. Mex still battling Fensei, who, it must be said, has been commendable in his attempts to keep this driver at bay. 11 lap old hards for Fensei. Aging mediums for Mex has done 6 laps on these, soon to be 7 laps on these mediums, as the top 2 drivers have crossed the line to begin lap 28 of 35. Ooh, slightly wider line does Fensei take compared to Mex here, who is now half a second behind the Red Bull. But he's nowhere near as efficient as Mex as far as his battery use is concerned as Buddha. Another time penalty. Mired down in P12. Lonely race for Espuda. Look at that track map. He's already been lapped. So both Seekley and Django have lapped Espuda, who sent it spinning straight into the wall to give us a little bit of action here. In a lull of action, he, sent it spinning straight into the wall. Espuda, mired down in P12, had a little bit of a moment there, a lonely race, but thankfully that wing is still intact. Josh into the pits again. What the heck is going on? He did fit a fresh set of soft tires at that point, and it's another wing change for Josh, who is now well and truly out of the points. Promoting Zotal up to P10. Man, oh man, oh man, Josh is in P19 in the driver's standings. He's racked up a total of 4 championship points, and this being race number 12, if he's not able to attend a couple more races, we may yet be bidding farewell to Josh, aka Damnesia. Is this as this tier 1 season hurtles towards its end as Buddha has DNF'd, but the question is where? It was in the pits. I suppose not thankfully for the drivers who would have been hoping for a safety car. Espuda has DNF'd, has retired from this race. Oh man, it's a nightmare season for the veteran driver who has been part of the top tier of Breakaway Racing League pretty much from its inception. And Espuda crashing out means that it is 7 races. 7 race retirements for Espuda. Struggling in this season. And mired in the bottom 3, just 9 championship points, 7 DNFs for Espuda, as Mex racks up another 3-second time penalty in this battle versus Fence. He has tried and tried. Oh, Tepiso has a huge spin coming out of the hairpin. Tepiso, who has already been lapped, has now just been lapped by Fence and Mex, who are running in P5 and P6, respectively. Tepiso, nightmare day for him. Oh, mistake by Fence. Golden opportunity for Mex, but in a straight line, the Red Bull superior to the McLaren, despite DRS and ERS. So Fence in a straight line is something that Mex has no answer to, but Mex does have the inside line coming on the exit of turn 2. But Fence holds his own, manages to hang on to that P5 spot. What a battle these two have had pretty much from the very beginning. Look at those penalties. Fence, 17 seconds. Man, oh man, oh man. Absolutely sensational stuff. Smirch Jangle has earned a 3-second time penalty. That's pretty much his hopes for a race win done and dusted. At this point, he will just hope for a mistake from the 3-time champion, who is the only driver yet to rack up a time penalty for track limit incursions. Josh, aka Damnesia, claims the fastest lap, although he's outside the points, so that will not help his points scoring prospects. So the only 2 drivers yet to accrue time penalties are the race leader, who was ahead by almost 4 seconds in lap 31 of 35, and Ngawako, aka D-Wax, who is on a huge battle with Loveness. He's got the inside line coming through the hairpin. Loveness says, "You shall not pass," at that particular point of the race. Here comes Zotal attacking the Alpha Tauri driver, wheel to wheel. Zotal will be on the outside, and Ngawako is fighting it, using as much of his battery power as possible. This is good news for Loveness, who will have a clean on the contested line through the final chicane. Zotal opts to bide his time here and not fight these two. The ghost of Tepiso is still trundling about the track as Zotal looks to give Ngawako, aka D-Wax, a lot to think about. Ngawako was trying to overtake Loveness, but then he had to turn his attentions back to the man chasing him, that being Zotal. So this is another battle that we have in prospect here in the final 3 laps of racing out here in Canada. Beautiful sweeping shot from the helicopter that we get. It is Zotal trying to make it a P9 finish at the very least. But Ngawako has that trump card, of course. He's kept it clean, no penalties. Here comes Zotal on the inside towards the chicane. And Zotal, braver on the brakes. They make a little bit of contact. He's forced wide. Is Ngawako. Zotal almost making contact with the wall. Is he going to get this move done? Will Zotal? The answer is yes. Coming out of that chicane, Zotal gets a clean overtake on the exit of that chicane. Ngawako, a.k.a. D-Wax, will have to bide his time and possibly fight once again to make sure that P10 becomes P9. But courtesy of those time penalties, all he needs to do is stay in touch with these top two drivers, and you will definitely have his say on the finishing positions of Zotal, possibly even Loveness, as the time penalties are the detail to pay close attention to between now and the end of this race. Oh, what happened there? Zotal and Ngawako. No, Zotal, is that Fensei? Man, Zotal and is that Tepiso possibly? Yeah, Zotal and Tepiso having a little bit of a moment there. Oh man, and that is going to be such bad news for Zotal, who was trying to keep Ngawako and the likes at bay, but now he's possibly going to have to keep Damnesia at bay. Thankfully for Zotal, Damnesia is nowhere near in the running. But as it stands, Sikle is on the verge of lapping Zotal in lap 33 of 35. This is the vantage point from Sikle. Ahead of him is Zotal. That's Zotal's car that you see disappearing into the distance, as this man will soon begin the penultimate lap of this race. A beautiful drive by the champion in firm control, in firm command of this race. Look at that gap. Crosses the line to begin lap 34 as the driver a full 22 seconds ahead of Django. Man, oh man, oh man. Tepiso, his day goes from bad to worse. He racks up a time penalty for speeding, and he retires his car. So Tepiso sees, well, there's no use carrying on around here. I tried my best. I tried to join late. Oh, look at that. Sikle gets a 3-second time penalty at the end of this race. Kaposa crashes out. Kaposa was running in P4, and he has lost it coming out of that final chicane. There it is. Kaposa lost it. The final chicane, he came unstuck, and this safety car is possibly too little, too late. The top two drivers have 3-second time penalties, and Django had opted to come into the pits because he was hoping to go for that fastest lap at this point. He's got that time penalty, does Django, but Sikle answered that, and he said, no, Django, you will not claim that extra point for a fastest lap, as I will now begin the 35th and the final lap. Oh, on those aging mediums. Oh, I beg your pardon, I got it confused. It's not Sikle who had also pitted, but it was Django who opted to come into the pits for those soft compound tires. So he's definitely going for that extra point on top of the 18 that he will get. And he claims the fastest lap. It's a 1:12.228 at the end of lap 34 to begin the final lap of the race. Kaposa crashing out towards the end of proceedings here means that Josh, aka Damnesia, will have the saving grace of an extra point in this here race. Now, the top two drivers have already lapped so much of the field, including the likes of Zotal, as we mentioned earlier, and as Tindo is pointing out in this here race. And Ngawako, kudos to you, sir. It's still a point finish, and he becomes the only man to finish this race, hopefully without a time penalty. But here comes the champion towards the line to win the Canadian Grand Prix by a huge margin, 21 seconds at the very least, as Sikle puts in another Hall of Fame performance as the already lapped Zotal comes across the line in P9. Smirch Django will bring it home. Remember, those time penalties will have a lot to say towards the end of proceedings here. He will be content to claim that extra point. He comes home P2, so it's going to be 19 points in this here race to hang on to the lead of the championship over here. His Royal Highness, the King Rapture, what a day for him. He was admired in a couple of battles, will come home with a 6-second time penalty ahead of Moteo Mekwa. P3 for the Williams driver. Moteo Mekwa now making his way towards the line. Behind him is Fense, of course, who has 20 seconds worth of time penalties. Oh my word, huge time penalties for him. But P5 for Fense, the rookie driver in this tier, is not bad at all. Mandla, decent points haul for him. Also time penalties to contend with. And P5 becomes P6 for Fense, courtesy of that huge time penalty that he had to contend with. Loveness will bring home some Haas points. And before all is said and done here, P7 for him, and Ingawako, a.k.a. D-Wax, will come home in the P... it may even be P7, courtesy of the penalties that Loveness had racked up at this particular point of the day. Man, oh man, time penalty shootout in Canada. What a day we have had. Thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of this. Nintendo Wii Celebrates. Remember to like the stream if you have not already, as we see the champion celebrating on the top step of the podium. He's comfortable, confident, and he looked pretty much unflustered, and he's the first to join us in the commentary box. Congratulations, Sikwe, as we see you raise that trophy for that Grand Prix win. How does that feel? How was that?
Yeah, good to be at the top again. Fighting back. Yeah, it was a good race. I had more pace than I showed. But yeah, that's good. Didn't give it a 100% in quali. Yeah, it was very good. I really enjoyed that. I was just having fun. I was patient, and yeah, I knew what I was doing. Yeah, it worked.
Wow. We saw, of course, that that battle between the two of you when you were just rushing down towards the pit lane. It seemed that you may have been thinking the same as your teammate there, but then you just went for it, and you had that advantage to pit when you did. And your outlap was sensational, because try as he might, Django just had no answer there.
Yeah, what I noticed is it's a controller versus wheel thing. Controller, I mean, with traction out of every single corner, it's just stupid fast, honestly. But yeah, as my car gets lighter, I always find a way to find more pace. It's more like quali. And because I wasn't pushing earlier on, I can save a bit of my tires, a bit of rubber. I mean, I set a faster lap than I previously did, my final lap. So yeah, it was, it's just management. That's all it was. Yeah, but like I said, I was having fun.
Ah, man, and you looked absolutely in firm control, pretty much from the start of proceedings here. And once again, you were unchallenged at the start. So compared to the start of the season, your race starts have really come together, and you're pretty much very comfortable there.
Yeah, I learned from the best. Sorry, I just learned from the best. I just look at the RPM these guys utilize, and I mean, they use that with cold tires, so it should work with me if I have a warm-up lap. Yeah, but I just copy these esports guys, and sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't, but I always just try to copy them.
Beautiful stuff, man. Top step of the podium. The man who tried to challenge. He gave us some heck of entertainment, but he opted to come into the pits when he just saw that he couldn't get it done, courtesy of that time penalty. Smirch Django, P2. Congratulations, sir. Take us through your race.
Thank you, Tyson. It was not so nice of a race. I was struggling with my rear because I was invalidating a lot even in quali, and it was a bit tricky. So I knew that I'm just settling for P2 right there and then, because I was either gonna get 9 seconds of penalty or get P2. So I decided that P2 is better than getting 9 seconds without knowing how many seconds others are going to get. But yeah, so struggling with that, tried to push. I think the undercut worked very well. I think he was Sifo saving his ERS, and straight after that he just came flying with those mediums. Great pace from him, and GG's.
Well, man, it's been a beautiful season for you. You've always just been there and thereabouts. Both of you, Mercedes drivers, you and Seekley, always managed to build a gap, a healthy gap, such that you don't have to worry too much about who is behind you. Can it be a similar thing in the remaining 4 tracks? Your comfort level around Spain, Mexico, Bahrain, and Imola?
Well, for me, the only one that I don't like is Imola, but we shall see.
All right. Man, Smirch Django, once again in firm command of this race. I look forward to seeing what you will do in the upcoming tracks. Spain is up next. Congratulations, sir. His Royal Highness, Maripang, the King Raptor, has joined the lobby, coming home in P3 for Team Williams. A beautiful result. He is on the podium. It's beautiful to have you, sir. Congratulations. Take us through that.
No, thank you very much, man. I mean, this was a tough race. This is a tough track, and these are tough oppositions. So, getting a podium in Canada is really something special. So, I'm really happy about that.
We saw you involved, I suppose, I think it was in the halfway mark of the race, with some early battles there. Just take us through who exactly was who was making your life difficult, but you managed to build that gap eventually towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a race of 2 halves. The first section was, I think, the first 3 laps, because I was the furthest guy at the back for the front runners with the hard tires. So the amnesia was really putting pressure. So I knew that even if it meant depleting the ERS, I just needed to get past Koboza. But then when I made the overtake, the amnesia followed suit. So we had a little bit of a battle of me just trying to keep it behind, plus without dipping lower than 10% on the ERS.
Yeah.
So then once he made a spin, I mean, it was free sailing from that. Then when I pitted, Koboza was just behind me with the uppercut, and I broke away. So the whole section with the medium tires was just with a broken wing, and eventually he also spun and made it easy in the end.
It's a second podium for you this season after, I think it was Singapore, where you were also on the podium there. How have you felt in terms of racing with these particular guys? Is it something that you felt comfortable with from the very beginning, or has it been an adjustment for you since coming up to Tier 1?
I think the story for this season for myself was just to rectify some of my mistakes in the previous tier, where I spun pretty much every race.
Yeah.
So I just focused on that because I knew that I had the pace to at least be at the podium spots. So once I got that under wraps, my race pace kind of spoke for itself, and eventually when I make critical overtakes, I'm able to just hold the lead and just keep going on. So yeah, that's how I feel.
Beautiful stuff. Congratulations, Maripang, a.k.a. King Raptor, His Royal Highness, finishing on the podium alongside none other than the defending champion, Seekley, at the top of the step, and Django. Gentlemen, thank you. We will see you next time out in Spain, that being Tuesday next week. Remember, on Monday, Tiers 2 and 3 are back. Tier 3, 8 p.m. Central African Time. Tier 2, that is, 8 p.m. Central African Time, and Tier 3, 9 p.m. Central African Time on this here channel. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time. Let me just catch up with the comments before wrapping up the stream. Manray says, so the Fanatec wheels can show RPMs. We need to invest. And CFA corrects him, says you can see it on the game as well. On the telemetry in front of you. Tapiso is confident of keeping his place in the top tier. He's targeting the fight with Mandla, a.k.a. Romeo. And Fensei says, you know what? I'll take P6, all things considered. Debo Croc says, Fensei, even with all those penalties, well done on that P6 spot. Beautiful racing. Congratulations to all of you. Thank you so much for being such great sports in the comment section. Looking forward to seeing you on this year channel to check out the Tier 2 action on Monday. Thank you, everybody, and good night.
Good night.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.